to you.
Excellent points, Raul. Excellent points. In fact, if we just continue building on the theme that she isn't exactly a powerful speaker, but she uses all the other tools to come across as effective. She had a beautiful speech. And if you do watch it, I think the whole thing is about 30 minutes, close to 30
Yeah.
minutes. And she doesn't read. The only time
Mhm.
she does read is when she has to quote something or maybe remember a name, she'll look. But she's not reading.
Mhm.
And that's quite powerful considering that when you listen to her, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. When you listen to her, it sounds like she memorized it. She is speaking from her heart, but she memorized it.
Mhm.
Okay. Either way, it's just considering the fact again that she's not very strong in her delivery, but she gets all the other tools together correctly,
Mhm.
and she's still able to deliver effectively. Welcome to episode 4 of Tip Talks. Today, we'll be discussing another pivotal person in a point of history. Our previous speeches were about similar people. They all were all at pivotal points in history. I believe we started with Martin Luther King, who was at a pivotal point in terms of racial equality in the United States. Then we made like a prequel. We went a little earlier in time and brought up Abraham Lincoln, who was pivotal in the sense that the country was divided when he was giving his speech. And then they brought us up to Obama, who also was pivotal in the sense that I believe there had been several years of Republican governance, and they were switching over to the Democrat governance in the United States, and that meant a big shift in a lot of things. Today we're doing the same, but this time we're doing it with Cory Aquino. Uh, she was invited to give a speech in front of the, I believe it was the Congress, right? U.S. Congress.
Yep.
And she was the only invitee who had ever received an applause for more than 2 minutes. It was even a standing applause. So that was a point that was made. Very, very interesting point because just like the previous three people we spoke of, she was also a person for her time.
Mhm.
She knew she was not capable of being a president, but she also knew that the country needed a person to transition.
Mhm.
So she decided to take the challenge, if you want to say, and took the position of president.
Mhm.
So this is her in front of the US Congress. Dino, let's go.
Okay, so thank you so much, Paul. Paul, who is our moderator tonight, is a renowned consultant, speaker, trainer, and certainly one of our veteran hosts here in Tip Talks, as well as in our parent show, The Leader's Edge. Um, I am Dino Santos. I'm one of the panelists for tonight's show. I'm also a consultant and a trainer and a Toastmaster. So that's where many of us are coming from. And that's why we love to analyze speeches and speakers. Raul?
Okay. Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Raul de la Vega. I work as a trainer in a business process outsourcing company, and I've also been a Toastmaster since 1997.
Mm.
I have a knack of listening also to speeches and analyzing what makes them good and seeing the how it could have been better. Thank you very much. Back to you, Dino.
Oh, yeah, I really should be letting Paul. uh,
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. I'll just take over. Thank you, Raul. And let's go over to Josh. Josh?
Hello, I am Josh, and currently I'm 17 years old, studying senior high school at Quezon City Science High School, and I am a student of Teacher Dino in public speaking. Usually, I use these opportunities to improve my ability to speak in front of the public, and in analyzing speeches, especially the historical ones spoken by historical people. It amazes me as I analyze their speech because of how it influenced or impacted the people of.
Yeah, okay. We kind of missed that last part, Josh. Could you just share with
Impacted
us?
people. That's
Yeah,
where it ended.
parang doon, ano? Okay. Yeah,
How it impacted people. That's where it kind of ended din naman. So
yun.
I think we can proceed.
Okay, thank you. So, back to you, Paul.
Okay, Dino, if you don't mind, let's start the speech.
Roger that. So, I will be sharing sound and optimize for video clip, but only computer sound. Here we go. So,
Mr. Speaker, Senator Thurmond, distinguished members of Congress. 3 years ago, I left America in grief to bury my husband, Ninoy Aquino. I thought I had left it also to lay to rest his restless dream of Philippine freedom. Today, I have returned as the president of a free people. In burying Ninoy, a whole nation honored him by that brave and selfless act of giving honor. A nation in shame recovered its own. A country that had lost faith in its future found it in a faithless and brazen act of murder. So in giving we receive, in losing we find, and out of defeat we snatched our victory. For the nation, Ninoy became the pleasing sacrifice that answered their prayers for freedom. For myself and our children, Ninoy was a loving husband and father. His loss, 3 times in our lives, was always a deep and painful one. 14 years ago this month was the first time we lost him. A president turned dictator and traitor to his oath, suspended the Constitution and shut down the Congress that was much like this one, before which I am honored to speak. He detained my husband along with thousands of others, senators, publishers, and anyone who had spoken up for the democracy as its end drew near. But for Ninoy, a long and cruel ordeal was reserved. The dictator already knew that Ninoy was not a body merely to be imprisoned, but a spirit he must break. For even as the dictatorship demolished one by one the institutions of democracy, the press, the Congress, the independence of the judiciary, the protection of the Bill of Rights, Ninoy kept their spirit alive in himself. The government sought to break him by indignities and terror. They locked him up in a tiny, nearly airless cell in a military camp in the north. They stripped him naked and held the threat of a sudden midnight execution over his head. Ninoy held up manfully under all of it. I barely did as well. For 43 days, the authorities would not tell me what had happened to him. This was the first time my children and I felt we had lost him. When that didn't work, they put him on trial for subversion, murder, and a host of other crimes before a military commission. Ninoy challenged its authority and went on a fast. If he survived it, then he felt God intended him for another fate. We had lost him again, for nothing would hold him back from his determination to see his fast through to the end. He stopped only when it dawned on him that the government would keep his body alive after the fast had destroyed his brain. And so, with barely any life in his body, he called off the fast on the 40th day.
Wow.
God meant him for other things, he felt. He did not know that an early death would still be his fate, that only the timing was wrong. At any time during his long ordeal, Ninoy could have made a separate peace with the dictatorship, as so many of his countrymen had done. But the spirit of democracy that inheres in our race and animates this chamber could not be allowed to die. He held out in the loneliness of his cell and the frustration of exile, the democratic alternative to the insatiable greed and mindless cruelty of the right and the purging holocaust of the left.
Okay, so we'll pause there. And Paul?
Okay, maybe I'll start asking the others what they think about the speech so far. Let's start with Raul.
Okay, well, thank you, Paul. All right, so the opening portion of Cory's speech, now what's fantastic about that is in three sentences, in just three sentences, she catches the attention of the audience, and because because it's concise, just as especially what Americans appreciate. Though it's very concise.
Mm.
It's a story. It's a story, concise, three sentences, and it lets them see the triumph of someone against impossible odds. That's why I believe that's why she gets that kind of applause right away. Mm,
Excellent
I
point, Raul.
Mm.
Mhm. I felt that if you would have watched the video before she starts, no, before she starts, I felt that when I saw her take a sip of water, and then I wish she would have done that in her pre-speech routine. That way, she could show a little bit more confidence, smile a little bit more to the audience there, which I feel her audience would further have uh, appreciated. That's just me when it comes to the her pre-speech routine. But I really admire how she was able to uh, build that connection with the audience right away.
Mm.
Back to you, Paul.
Excellent points, Raul. Very, 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 very true, especially about what the Americans or they appreciate brevity.
Yeah.
Uh, Filipinos seem to prefer the other end. Okay. But the Americans certainly enjoy brevity, and it definitely was a good start. Definitely got their attention. How about you, Josh?
Oh, the introduction of her speech was powerful already. The way she introduced herself, someone who has lost family, someone who has lost her country, or someone who has lost time with one of their most beloved members and loved ones in general, that sort of thing. Uh, the way she transitioned loss to achievement is already what do you call this, an awesome, an amazing thing, so something that audiences like to hear from speeches, because for one thing, it's inspiring. It inspires the common folk to continue on with their goals, with their tasks, with their lifelong dreams, in spite of losses, in spite of defeats. That is something that I admire from Cory Aquino. Imagine losing your husband, the man of your family,
Mm.
and using that loss, building up on what you have lost to gain something better, to say, to earn something greater and to do something bigger, not just for your family, not for yourself, but for your entire country. That opening, I mean, that part of her story was what do you call this, incorporated into her opening speech. So far it's doing great.
Mm.
Thank you, Josh. Wonderful insights about the transitions, which are also really, really on point, if you want to say. How about you, Dino?
Well, my thoughts about it is that unlike the previous three episodes where we had people who are seasoned public speakers, I mean, these are people who have trained all their lives to lead, to give great speeches. By contrast, Cory was thrust into that role, and she is, if you just look at her delivery, you would not say that she is a seasoned speaker, but you could say she's an authentic speaker, because when she coughed, that wasn't just because she was nervous facing, of course, Congress. She coughed because she was also dealing with the emotions that she was feeling. So, the thing that struck me most about how she started her talk and how she was giving it was how human she was as she shared her feelings and her thoughts. Um, Refreshing, considering that our first three episodes dealt with those who are used to it, those with no stage fright, those who are willing to just go up there and begin to talk. But here we dealt with someone who understood how momentous the occasion was, and probably wanted to nothing more but to hide under the lectern, but instead sucked up her nervousness and spoke from her heart. So to me, that was the thing that really struck me the most.
Excellent points, Dino. In fact, I had the same feeling that she doesn't sound like a powerful orator.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just listen to her voice, it's not something that, oh, I want to listen to her. It doesn't add up.
Yeah.
But to your point about authenticity, and maybe it's a different view of what Raul is mentioning. The sip of water at the beginning is saying, I'm nervous. Okay. Let's have some water. But it also makes it a touch authentic. But that's a contrast to the point of view of Raul. But going back to the fact that you can't say that she was a trained speaker,
Mhm.
because she doesn't sound in any way like somebody you'd like to listen to.
Mhm.
But how she recovers it is in the content,
Mhm.
the words that she uses and how she brings them together. When Josh mentioned the transition, very powerful, and she used it frequently, are the contrasts. Okay, she went from a faithless act of brazen faithless act of what the act was faithless to
Mhm.
faithful. Now we have faith in our country,
Mhm.
from darkness to light.
Mhm.
She used a lot of contrast to drive the emotion and
Mhm.
even make it more significant, if you want to say.
Right.
The other thing that I found really powerful was towards the end, before we paused, she related her situation to her audience.
Mhm.
Okay, you are the house of democracy. You represent democracy, and I now am entering the house.
Mhm.
So it reinforced the connection they had, because we also have to look and consider the fact that 5 years before, the U.S. was supporting the then president. Okay,
Yeah.
well, they were supportive of him, and now the tables had just turned, and she was able to connect it that way.
Mhm.
But otherwise, thank you for all of your comments. They're all very significant and definitely helped in this conversation. So, Dino, let's continue.
Roger that.
And then we lost him irrevocably and more painfully than in the past. The news came to us in Boston. It had to be after the 3 happiest years of our lives together. But his death was my country's resurrection in the courage and faith by which alone they could be free again. The dictator had called him a nobody, yet 2 million people threw aside their passivity and fear and escorted him to his grave. And so began the revolution that has brought me to democracy's most famous home, the Congress of the United States. The task had fallen on my shoulders to continue offering the democratic alternative to our people. Archibald MacLeish had said that democracy must be defended by arms when it is attacked by arms, and by truth when it is attacked by lies. He failed to say how it shall be won. I held fast to Ninoy's conviction that it must be by the ways of democracy. I held out for participation in the 1984 election the dictatorship called, even if I knew it would be rigged. I was warned by the lawyers of the opposition that I ran the grave risk of legitimizing the foregone results of elections that were clearly going to be fraudulent. But I was not fighting for lawyers, but for the people, in whose intelligence I had implicit faith. By the exercise of democracy, even in a dictatorship, they would be prepared for democracy when it came. And then also, it was the only way I knew by which we could measure our power, even in the terms dictated by the dictatorship. The people vindicated me in an election.
Okay, we could pause there.
Okay, thank you, Dino. Okay, this time maybe I'll start. Okay. If you listen to her speech, she's following what you would call maybe a classic structure in terms of how to deliver content. She had an excellent start. She uses contrast a lot. She
Yes.
transitions well, and she even uses the point of three. Everything is 3 points, easy to remember. She started with saying, "We lost them 3 times."
Mm.
Okay, and those of us who are practiced speakers know the power of point of three. Okay, there are 3 things to remember. There are 3 tips that you have to do. It's always 3. It's simply because it's an easy number to remember. But this is reinforcing the fact that because she's not really a powerful orator, if you want to say, she's relying on the content and the way it's structured
Yeah.
to carry her, which is an excellent point that you have to make, because sometimes you're not the most powerful orator. So your solution is make sure that your speech is well written. Okay, over to you, Dina. What do you think?
I'd like to know who wrote her speech. I mean, if she wrote it herself, wow, hats off. But whoever it was really wrote it powerfully, because in the hands of or let me put it in a different way. Even if it were whispered in a corridor in a monotone, the words would still be powerful. Not bombastic, without vocal dynamics. It could be the most boring drone that you could imagine, and yet it would still touch hearts. It would still move minds because of how powerful the lines that were given. In fact, what struck me most is how humble she was. Standing in that august body. There was no sense of uh, pride in herself, as much as there was pride in what her country had attained. So she was there representing her nation, and because of that, she was brave for us. So to me, that's what I took out from this portion of the talk. Thank you, Paul.
Excellent, excellent, Dino. As I think you can see, there's a recurring theme going on here. All right, but let's hear what Josh has to say.
Uh, I've noticed how parts of her speech utilized the theme of being an underdog against a strong opponent. The part that was said, which states something like she ran in the 1984 even if she knew it would be rigged, even if she
Mm.
knew that the current sitting power would do everything that they can to end up Marcos be to end up then president Ferdinand Marcos Sr. as the winner, even if it's through illegal means. The fact that she said that she was not representing the lawyers but the people in a fight against a sitting power, it's trying to give off a message of fighting for what is right in an underdog setting, if that's the right way to describe it. But yes, that is also something that people all around the world like to hear. People would pay for matches that put up underdogs against strong opponents. Something like how we Filipinos enjoyed the matches of Pacquiao against stronger opponents like Barrera and I forgot who the others were. But imagine you're just a small guy fighting a big person, a big
Mhm.
enemy. That's the kind of feeling that I felt as I was listening to this part of Cory's speech. And
Excellent point, Josh. Who doesn't like an underdog? Especially us Pinoys, we have that kind of thinking that will always go for the underdog. And you're right. It was really she made her. Actually, it was an epic struggle.
Mhm.
Uh, I will admit that maybe I didn't see it as epically as she describes it because I was in college then. Okay, but when I hear what she's saying compared to what I was experiencing, there's a vast difference in terms of maybe the power of what was happening. Over to you, Raul. What do you think?
All right. Well, first, in answer to Dino's question, the one who wrote the speech was Teddy Locsin
Oh,
Jr. I'd say that although he was the one who wrote the speech, when I watched the video, I felt that Cory Aquino, uh, she was able to uh, to get everything. She didn't read from the script.
yeah.
She was looking more at the audience. The only time
Mm.
when she would look at the piece of paper was when she would quote some authority.
Mm.
When she would give that quote, but the rest she would oftentimes look, which goes to show she her heart was into it. Now I also like how she's able to establish rapport with her audience. No?
Mm.
When notice that she gives the similarity of their goals when it comes to democracy, Bill of Rights, how they're very much tied together, which goes to show very good audience analysis. And then she also comes across as factual when she specifies specific years, like in 1984, this happened, 3 years together in Boston. So the specifics like these, they increase the credibility of her presentation.
Mm.
Back to you,
Excellent
Paul.
points, Raul. Excellent points. In fact, if we just continue building on the theme that she isn't exactly a powerful speaker, but she uses all the other tools to come across as effective. She had a beautiful speech. And if you do watch it, I think the whole thing is about 30 minutes, close to 30
Yeah.
minutes. And she doesn't read. The only time
Mm.
she does read it when she has to quote something or maybe remember a name, she'll look. But she's not reading.
Mm.
And that's quite powerful considering that when you listen to her, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. When you listen to her, it sounds like she memorized it. She is speaking from her heart, but she memorized it.
Mm.
Okay. Either way, it's just considering the fact again that she's not very strong in her delivery, but she gets all the other tools together correctly,
Mm.
and she's still able to deliver effectively.
You
Let's
know,
continue.
uh,
Yes,
before we go on, I'd
sure.
like to compare Cory to a modern day speaker. I don't know if you've met Rebecca Bustamante.
No, I haven't.
Okay, well,
Haven't had the pleasure.
Rebecca Bustamante is the one who founded Asia CEOs. That's a group of CEOs around Asia, kind of like a millionaires group. But because of her humble beginnings, she started out as a domestic helper. Um, and when she gave her first TED talk, I watched that, and my mom asked me, could you react to how she delivered so that we can give her suggestions on how to improve? So I listened to Becky give her speech, Rebecca give her speech. And even though her accent was very thick, kind of like uh, I will deliver this, instead of I will deliver this, I will deliver this. Um, it did, as I listened to her, because of the power of the content of what she was saying, I said to myself and to mom later on, uh, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing because that's her brand. Her brand says, you can start out small and humble, the way I did as a domestic helper, but look at me now. I'm the head of Asia CEO. I have earned millions, and I'm helping others become millionaires themselves. And so, her rise from rags to riches story is more powerful precisely because she isn't a good speaker, precisely because her speech style is so rough and primordial, that you are drawn to her. Her audience were college students and professionals, and they, like Cory, they gave her tumultuous applause because they could relate to her message of you can succeed if you put your mind to it. Hmm. Back to you,
Right.
Paul.
Right, excellent points. I'd love to listen to that speech. Maybe we could look at it one day. Consider
Yeah.
one of the speeches. If you grab the TED Talk, that would be awesome.
Hmm.
Okay, Dino, let's continue.
Roger that.
Shamefully marked by government thuggery and fraud, the opposition swept the elections, garnering a clear majority of the votes, even if they ended up, thanks to a corrupt Commission on Elections, with barely a third of the seats in Parliament. Now I knew our power. Last year, in an excess of arrogance, the dictatorship called for its doom in a snap election. The people obliged. With over 1 million signatures, they drafted me to challenge the dictatorship, and I obliged. The rest is the history that dramatically unfolded on your television screens and across the front pages of your newspapers. You saw a nation armed with courage and integrity stand fast by democracy against threats and corruption. You saw women poll watchers break out in tears as armed goons crashed the polling places to steal the ballots. But just the same, they tied themselves to the ballot boxes. You saw a people so committed to the ways of democracy that they were prepared to give their lives for its pale imitation. At the end of the day, before another wave of fraud could distort the results, I announced the people's victory. Many of you here today played a part in changing the policy of your country towards ours. We, the Filipinos, thank each of you for what you did, for balancing America's strategic interests against human concerns, illuminates the American vision of the world. The co-chairman of the United States Observer Team, in his report to the President, said, I was witness to an extraordinary manifestation of democracy on the part of the Filipino people. The ultimate result was the election of Mrs. Corazon Aquino as President and Mr. Salvador Laurel as Vice President of the Philippines. When a subservient parliament announced my opponent's victory, the people then turned out in the streets and proclaimed me the President of all the people. And true to their word, when a handful of military leaders declared themselves against the dictatorship, the people rallied to their protection. Surely the people take care of their own. It is on that faith and the obligation it entails that I assume the presidency. As I came to power peacefully, so shall I keep it. That is my contract with my people and my commitment to God.
Okay, maybe we can pause it again there. Yeah, Paul?
Thank you, Dino. Actually, I think we can also end the speech there, okay,
Mm.
because we've already given a great deal of feedback.
Mm-mm.
But the one thing that for me stands out most is she's telling a fantastic story.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a story of a struggle. Yeah, it starts with a sense of hopelessness, if you want to say, then it slowly builds up.
Mm.
Where if you're playing a video game, you're almost about to slay the giant, but then something else you know, jumps in your way, and oh no, I've got to start again, kind of thing. But it's the whole package of the speech that for me is just shines through. How about you? What do you think? Let's start with Dino. What do you think, Dino?
Well, I love the picturesque words that she used, and then how eager it made the audience, the congressman, to applaud her. And as you pointed out, they did applaud her several times. They couldn't help themselves because they felt such a great deal of resonance with what she was saying. Um, and although she was merely serving as a transitional leader for other leaders that followed later on, she helped heal the land, and it began with that speech. It began with her willingness to heed the people's will. Vox populi, vox Dei, as they say. And I kind of wonder, did any of us sign that 1 million signature letter? Because I'm trying to. I
You didn't
signed.
have the internet then, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
I don't.
remember reading a letter.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I do remember some people going around and inviting people to sign something. I was old enough to oh my gosh, revealing my age. Anyway, yeah. So I kind of remember that there was a signature campaign, but I wasn't fully aware that it reached 1 million. And I suppose in her shoes, if I saw something that had 1 million signatures, uh, how could I say no? So even with insurmountable odds, she faced the music and let the will of the people uh, come to fore.
Excellent points there, Dino. How she again there was that struggle,
Mm-mm.
okay, and I don't remember any letter, okay, but I do remember the signature drive. Strangely,
Yeah,
that's how I remember that. I also remember the nuns tying themselves to the ballot boxes.
yeah.
Clearly remember the pictures.
Mm-mm.
But she was a transition person.
Mm-mm.
But pretty much like our previous speakers, they were also in a moment where the nation was kind of like in transition.
Mm-mm.
Obama maybe might not seem like, but if I'm not mistaken, he was coming out of the disaster, the financial disaster that happened in 2007, 2008. Okay, and and at that point, the U.S. is looking at themselves, doing some soul searching about their greed, if you want to say. Well, one thing that I like about the comment you made about choice of words, when she said excess of arrogance, I
Mm-mm.
mean, the two words together for me are very powerful.
Mm-mm.
She could have used hubris
Mm.
or even excess of hubris, but it doesn't have the same effect.
Right.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. Over to you, Raul.
Okay. Well, thank you, Paul. Later on in the speech, she talks about what the Philippines intends to do,
Mm.
especially when they mention, oh, she talks about the later on. She talks about the improvements that are underway for the 1987 Constitution, and she talks about also a return to constitutional government. That's very helpful because it's not like other speeches that just give a bright promise of tomorrow. She has some specifics on what they intend to do.
Mm.
Especially later on in that speech, she talks about the Philippines having incurred a debt of close to 2 billion,
Mm.
and which they didn't benefit from. But but then she still says that look, we'll still honor our debt, and here's what we intend to do. So you can see it. This is very helpful because when especially when you're talking to Americans, you say, "Hey, we have a solution in mind, and here's how we intend to reach it." So I'd say it, it's a very good way of connecting with their audience.
Mm.
Back to you, Paul.
That's a powerful observation. I'll be able to connect with the audience and using very specific commitments, if you want to say, especially for somebody in a political position, if you want to say, because politicians usually shy away from those.
Mm.
They
Mhm.
just give very broad, broad
Yeah.
commitment. How about you, Josh?
Analyzing the speech or the parts of the speech that we have listened to so far, I don't think she was just giving a speech. She was setting an example for a leader, and she was
Mm.
lifting up uh, the people whom she fought for and whom she is representing before the U.S. Congress. Like what teacher Raul said, she, as a leader, gave her what do you call this, gave her objectives to the audience that she was speaking to, and she did not just give out the objectives. She was also uh she was also illustrating a clear plan of action on how she would achieve that
Mm.
objective. That action in itself is an example of what a leader should be doing. Like what teacher Paul said earlier, a lot of leaders nowadays just give out broad objectives, right? Like they don't give out the plans to the people.
Mm.
They keep giving blank promises that would later prove to be unfulfilled. And
Mm.
also there is this part in the speech, a transition. I would describe it as a transition, where she said, "I fought for the people and we won."
Mm.
Our it came off to me as something like, uh, this notion that if a people under a government are led by a leader who is unwise or foolish, or basically someone who led their country to uh, a downward spiral,
Mm.
people around the world would view those people as I don't want to say the bad word, but like they would be described by some people as not intelligent enough, because they would ask questions like, are you not smart enough? Why would you lead a why would you let someone like that lead you? Don't you have democracy? Don't you have the
Yeah.
right to choose who you want to be as your leader?
Mm.
So Cory in this part of the speech was stating to her audience that her people, marred and scarred by the abuses of a dictatorship, she was illustrating how those people could overcome their oppressors and fight for freedom, fight for their rights, fight for what they believed in was right, something like that. That kind of messages are some of the most appealing that people listen to nowadays, and what people over the years, over the times that have passed, have always wanted to listen to. That's all for uh, my analyzation. So yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Josh.
Paul, I'd
Yes,
like
go ahead.
to add just one last thing. I think I need to mention something also very obvious. Uh, at that particular moment in history, Cory was also the very first female president of the country. The first one ever. In the same way that Obama was also the very first African American to serve in his country. So um, they not only were pivotal in that they delivered great speeches, but they were also pivotal in that something happened for the first time during their term. So
Right.
I just want to mention that.
Right. Actually, in the case of Obama, his vice president was also female. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it was Castro who made the comment about, the only time I'll believe the United States has changed is when they've elected a black president and have a woman as a vice president. Oh, and that happened. Okay. All right. He made a comment like that, but then he made that comment uh, not recently, earlier, maybe in the 70s or something.
Mm,
But either way, it was just like this one here. It was a sense of maybe progress and hope.
mm,
Okay, moving forward, kind of thing. Hey, we are getting better. All
mm,
right. Well, all in all, I think the general theme here was, even though that Cory is not a powerful speaker,
mm,
she was able to put things together simply because she hit all the other marks.
yeah.
She had a great speech. She had a great start. She had great transition. She had great contrast. The choice of words was powerful. She told a story about an underdog. All of these things that they just come together to make an effective speech, even
Mm,
though you wouldn't say that she's a powerful speaker.
mm.
So for those of you who are watching and feel like you don't have the powers of Dino, for example, it's okay. Just make sure that you can get the other marks, hit them correctly.
Mm.
All right, gentlemen, would you like to say anything else?
Um, well, at this point, I'm just going to say that I'm really very pleased with this particular episode because this one speaks during a momentous time in our history. Uh, be, because now we have Junior sitting in power, and though he may not be perfect, I think he is working on the stated goal that they had during the campaign, which was to fix their family's name. And so far, I'd say either somebody's giving him some really good advice, or he really is trying to make an effort to do a better job. Um, Despite what I think about what happened during the elections. All right. So I mean, things aren't as bad as they could have been. And I especially like the way that we are standing up to China now.
I like that one.
Mm.
Any last words, Raul, Josh?
Well, I I'd say that Cory's speech, goes to show how uh, you could connect with the audience, especially with your sincerity. And just a little bit of trivia. After Cory, there were also a number of uh, female leaders, country leaders who who, uh, who went into office.
Yeah.
One example I can still remember at that time was
Margaret
uh,
Thatcher.
Bhutto. Yeah, and Margaret Thatcher, and then the daughter of Bhutto. Yes, so that
Benazir.
was yeah, yes.
Mm.
Benazir.
That's why it's indeed a proud moment, and I'd say having I'm glad I also had the chance to watch this speech in better depth, and because her I mean content wise it's it's an it brings us a positive example even in today's standards.
Mm.
Back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Raul. How about you, Josh?
Uh, Aside the facts that were mentioned, like how she is one of the first female leaders during that time, aside to Margaret Thatcher and Golda Meir,
Mm.
the people like them, she was also giving the Filipinos a sense of pride in the world stage. This is
Mm.
what I would like to call legit Pinoy pride,
Mm.
because imagine lifting up something from the gutters. Truly an amazing accomplishment to be done by our by an exceptionally remarkable female leader at that.
Mm. Indeed.
So those points, yes. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Dino.
Yep. Based on what Josh said, I just wanted to agree with him in that, we have Manny Pacquiao who elevated boxing and the Filipino as a credible source of pugilists, world winning pugilists. And then Efren Bata Reyes, who is often referred to as the magician. and and then we can add Cory to that as well because of how they really made us stand out. So it's not just Philippines being a source of great beauty queens or boxers or billiard players. We can also be a source of great leaders.
Absolutely, Dino. Absolutely. Great leaders. Actually, great leaders are everywhere. Uh, they just have to decide to be a leader. That's what it boils down to. Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, you might be president of a country, but you still haven't decided to be a leader. You might be a CEO of a multi-billion company, but you still haven't decided to be a leader. Okay, so it's leadership for me is still a decision. She did make a decision knowing her weaknesses, or maybe her her she knew she had limitations.
Mm.
Okay, but as Ro pointed out, she just stuck to her sincerity, if you want to say, her
Mm.
authenticity, and pretty much it just shone through.
Yeah.
For that, gentlemen, our following episode is with Ninoy Aquino. He gave a speech also in the United States. That'll be the one we'll be looking at in Tip Talks episode 5. And as always, remember, learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas.